Fake police Karen tossed me over my daughter, she is now serving time for kidnapping. The taser prongs hit my chest before I even finished saying, "This is my own daughter." I convulsed on my own driveway while my 7-year-old, Eliana, screamed my name over and over. The woman holding the taser wore a homemade badge that said HOA Community Safety Officer. Her name was Karen Whitfield, president of the Brookstone Meadows Homeowners Association, and she had just tossed me for putting my kid in my own car. Neighbors watched from their porches. Nobody moved. Nobody called real police. They were too afraid of her. That night, lying on the ER gurney with burn marks on my ribs, I made a promise to Eliana: this woman would never touch us again. I didn't know yet that promise would take down not just Karen, but a criminal operation she'd been running for 6 years. My name is Marcus Reyes. I'm a single dad, a structural engineer, and until that night, I thought HOA drama meant ugly mailbox colors. I was wrong. Dead wrong. 2 years earlier, my wife passed and Eliana and I moved into Brookstone Meadows for the good school district and quiet streets. The homes were beautiful, tree-lined, exactly what I wanted for my daughter's stability. Karen Whitfield greeted us on move-in day with a fruit basket and a 17-page HOA handbook. "Welcome to the family," she said, smiling with teeth that never quite reached her eyes. I should have noticed how her smile flickered when I mentioned I worked from home and would be watching everything closely. The first few months were fine. Then the letters started. A citation for grass, 1/2 inch too tall. A fine for a non-compliant welcome mat. A warning for Eliana's chalk drawings on our own driveway. I paid the small fines, laughed them off, told myself it was just an eccentric board member with too much time. I didn't understand yet that Karen Whitfield needed control the way other people need oxygen. She'd lost her real estate license years back, a fact she buried deep, a fact I would later dig up myself. Being HOA president was the only kingdom she had left, and she guarded it like a war general. The small conflict became a wildfire the week Eliana's swing set arrived. I'd ordered it for her birthday, nothing extravagant, just a simple wooden play set in our fenced backyard. Karen showed up unannounced, tape measure in hand, insisting it violated a visual harmony ordinance nobody had ever mentioned. "Take it down in 48 hours, she said, "or I'll have it removed at your expense." Eliana cried herself to sleep that night, asking why that swing lady hated her. That question broke something in me, and lit something too. I started keeping a folder. Every letter, every citation, every time-stamped photo of violations on other homes she conveniently ignored. I noticed a pattern almost immediately. Every family she targeted was new, young, or renting to own, families without deep pockets or lawyer friends. Meanwhile, board member Diane Foss's overgrown hedges and cracked driveway sat untouched for years. Diane, it turned out, was Karen's college roommate. Funny how the rules bent for old friends. I brought my swing set concerns to the next HOA meeting, calm and prepared, only to get gavelled down after 90 seconds. "New residents don't get open floor privileges," Karen announced, as if she'd invented that rule on the spot. She had. A woman 2 rows behind me, Carol Ito, caught my eye and gave the smallest, saddest shake of her head. After the meeting, Carol pulled me aside in the parking lot. "You're not the first," she whispered. "You won't be the last if you don't fight smart." Carol had lived in Brookstone for 11 years. She'd watched 3 families sell their homes at a loss just to escape Karen. 36 foot, she has friends downtown, Carol warned. Zoning office, a cousin at the county clerk's. Be careful what paper trail you leave. That warning should have scared me off. Instead, it told me exactly where to start digging. I began requesting public records, HOA meeting minutes, fine ledgers, and financial disclosures, all technically available to any homeowner. Karen stalled every request for weeks, citing administrative backlog, a phrase she clearly loved. When the documents finally came, half the numbers didn't add up. Landscaping invoices for work I'd never seen done. A security patrol line item, $1,200 a month, for a neighborhood with 0 hired guards. I photographed everything and backed it up in 3 separate places. Something told me I'd need proof that couldn't be denied. The tension in the neighborhood thickened. Neighbors stopped waving. People whispered instead of talking, afraid of being Karen's next target. Then Karen escalated in a way I never expected. She started showing up while I was at work, checking on Eliana at the bus stop. My babysitter, Renata, told me Karen had asked pointed questions about who really has custody of Eliana. I felt a cold spike of fear. Karen was building a narrative and I didn't yet understand why. It turned out Karen had appointed herself unofficial, block watch, self-styling authority she never legally held. She'd bought a cheap badge online and started calling herself HOA Safety Officer, a title with no legal standing whatsoever. Several neighbors, intimidated by the badge, assumed she had real authority. That misconception was about to explode. One Tuesday evening, I picked Eliana up early from a friend's house for a dentist appointment. Karen was parked across the street, watching, as I buckled Eliana into my car. She marched over, badge clipped to her blouse, and demanded I prove custodial rights on the spot. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She was not joking. "I don't answer to you, Karen," I said, closing Eliana's door. "This is my daughter. Have a good night." That's when she pulled the taser from her purse like she'd been waiting for an excuse for months. "Stop resisting," she barked, as if she were an actual officer, as if any of this were legal. I put my hands up. I said Eliana's name. I said, "Please." None of it mattered. The prongs hit my chest. My legs buckled. Eliana's scream is a sound I will never, ever forget. I collapsed against the car door, vision sparking white, my daughter's small hands pulling frantically at my sleeve. A neighbor finally called real police, not because of Karen, but because someone's doorbell camera caught the whole thing streaming live to their phone. Officer Daniela Cruz arrived within 6 minutes, took one look at Karen's homemade badge and asked her to drop the weapon immediately. "I'm the HOA safety officer," Karen insisted, chin high, as if that title carried any legal weight at all. Officer Cruz's face went flat. "Ma'am, that is not a real position. You just assaulted a civilian with a taser." Karen was handcuffed on her own cul-de-sac while 3 neighbors finally came outside to watch. Eliana wouldn't stop shaking. The paramedics checked her heart rate twice, worried the shock of watching had done real damage. At the hospital, a detective named Rios sat with me and asked a question that changed everything. "Has this woman done this before?" I told him about the badge, the fines, the security patrol line item that didn't exist. His eyebrows rose. "We've had 2 other complaints about a woman posing as security in gated communities," he said. "Never got enough evidence to charge her." I opened my phone and showed him my folder, 2 years of documentation I never imagined would matter this much. Detective Rios leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Reyes, I think you just handed us the case we needed." For the first time since the taser hit me, I felt something other than fear. I felt the ground shifting under Karen's feet. The story hit local news within 48 hours. HOA President Tas's father impersonates officer, traumatizes child. Karen's mugshot, smug, unbothered, went viral within a day. The internet nicknamed her Taser Karen by morning. She was released on bail almost immediately, back in her house by nightfall, as if nothing had happened. I sat on my porch that evening, Eliana asleep on my lap, and watched Karen's porch light flick on across the street like a taunt. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Priya Anand, told me the assault charge alone could put Karen away for months. "But if we connect her to fraud in that HOA ledger," Priya said, "we're not talking months. We're talking years." I told her everything: the fake badge, the missing landscaping funds, the phantom security line item. Priya's eyes lit up. "Marcus, this isn't just an HOA bully anymore. This might be embezzlement." We requested a forensic audit of the HOA's finances, citing the assault as grounds for a deeper investigation. Karen fought it in an emergency board vote, trying to block outside auditors from touching her books. The vote failed 4-3. Even Diane Foss, her old college friend, quietly abstained. Word had spread fast about the taser. Even loyal allies were starting to distance themselves from Karen. The auditors arrived a week later, boxes of receipts in tow, ready to trace every dollar Karen had ever touched. Meanwhile, Karen tried a new tactic, painting herself as the victim of cancel culture in a neighborhood Facebook post. "I was protecting this community," she wrote. "A single father with no supervision let his child run wild near traffic." That lie was the twist that changed everything, because it was about to be disproven in the most public way possible. Carol Ito, the woman who'd warned me at the very first meeting, commented under Karen's post with a screenshot. It was a text from Karen, sent months earlier, bragging about finally getting a reason to deal with that new guy's kid. Carol had kept every group chat message for years, terrified she'd need them one day. That day had come. The post exploded. Neighbors who'd stayed silent for years suddenly found their voices, flooding the comments with their own stories. One woman revealed Karen had once entered her home uninvited to inspect for code violations while she was in the shower. Another shared a photo of a fine notice for excessive Christmas lights, dated during a week Karen had been on vacation, meaning someone falsified it in her name to cover a scheme. The falsified fine detail caught Detective Rios's attention immediately, because it matched a fraud pattern from the ledger. It turned out Karen had been forging fines under other board members' names to hide the true scale of what she was collecting. The forensic auditors found nearly $38,000 in HOA dues diverted into a shell landscaping company Karen quietly owned. Green Meadow Grounds LLC existed on paper only, filed by Karen under her maiden name, no employees, no equipment, no real work. Every landscaping invoice I'd photographed months earlier was proof she'd been paying herself with our money for years. I felt my hands shake reading the auditor's summary, not from fear this time, but from the electric shock of vindication. Priya smiled at me across her desk. "Marcus, you built this case for them before they even knew they needed it." But Karen wasn't done. Cornered animals get more dangerous, not less. She hired a slick attorney, Graham Voss, who specialized in reputation management and delay tactics. Graham filed for the assault case to be dismissed, claiming Karen reasonably believed Eliana was being abducted. The claim was absurd. Eliana had called me "Daddy" the entire time, on camera, in front of 3 witnesses. Still, the delay tactic worked for a while, pushing the criminal trial back nearly 2 months. During that time, Karen tried something colder. She petitioned for a restraining order against me, claiming I'd threatened her. It was a lie built entirely on one angry email I'd sent asking for the HOA's financial records. The judge read the email aloud in court. It said, verbatim, "Please send the requested documents by Friday. Thank you." Nothing else. The courtroom actually laughed. The judge dismissed Karen's petition in under 4 minutes. That humiliation lit a fire under Karen that made her reckless, and recklessness is exactly what her enemies needed. She started calling former board members late at night, pressuring them to get their story straight before depositions. One of those calls was to Diane Foss, who, tired, scared and done covering for her old friend, recorded it. On the recording, Karen admitted she'd borrowed HOA funds before but always paid it back eventually. Diane handed that recording to Detective Rios without hesitation. The friendship that had shielded Karen for years finally cracked. "I didn't sign up to go to prison for her landscaping scheme," Diane told me quietly at the mailbox one morning. I almost felt sorry for Karen in that moment. Almost. Then I remembered the taser scar still fading on my chest. The DA's office added embezzlement, forgery and witness tampering charges on top of the assault case. Karen's world, once a tightly controlled kingdom of citation letters and fake badges, was collapsing in on itself. She tried one last desperate move, a smear campaign claiming I'd fabricated the entire ledger to get revenge over the swing set. It might have worked, if not for a detail she'd forgotten completely. The county clerk's office kept its own backup copies of every HOA filing. Those backups matched my photographs exactly, timestamp for timestamp, dollar for dollar. There was no fabrication. There was only Karen, buried under her own paperwork. The neighborhood, once silent out of fear, was now a chorus of homeowners lining up to testify. 7 families came forward with their own citation stories, their own strange finds, their own uneasy memories of Karen's badge. A pattern emerged that even I hadn't fully grasped. Karen had specifically targeted single parents and young families, believing they'd be too tired or scared to fight back. She had picked the wrong single parent. Eliana, meanwhile, was seeing a child therapist twice a week, working through nightmares about the swing lady with the buzzing stick. Watching my daughter flinch at loud clicking sounds was the fuel that kept me going through every exhausting legal meeting. I refused every settlement offer Graham Voss put on the table, no matter how the numbers climbed. This isn't about money, I told Priya. It's about making sure she never does this to another kid again. The trial date finally arrived on a gray Tuesday morning in October, courtroom packed with Brookstone Meadows neighbors. Karen walked in wearing pearls and a soft blue cardigan, playing the role of a misunderstood grandmother. It didn't work. The prosecution had 18 months of receipts, recordings and testimony stacked against her. Detective Rios testified first, laying out the fake badge, the taser purchase records and the forged fine notices. Then came the doorbell camera footage, Eliana's scream, my collapse, Karen's flat, chilling calm as she stood over us. Several jurors visibly winced. One covered her mouth with her hand. Diane Foss testified next, voice shaking, describing years of watching Karen manipulate the board and threaten dissenters into silence. She told me once, Diane said, that rules exist to protect the people smart enough to use them. I didn't understand what she meant until it was too late. Carol Ito testified about the phantom vacation fine, the forged names, the years of quiet fear that kept the whole neighborhood compliant. Then it was my turn. I described the taser hitting my chest, the burning, the terror of hearing my daughter scream while I couldn't move. I described Eliana's nightmares, her flinch at loud noises, the therapy sessions, the fear she now carried at just 7 years old. I looked directly at Karen while I spoke. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The prosecution's final witness was the forensic auditor, who calmly explained the shell company, the diverted funds, the 6 years of quiet theft. This wasn't a mistake, the auditor said. This was a sustained, deliberate financial scheme. Graham Voss tried to argue Karen suffered from community anxiety that clouded her judgment. The jury did not buy it. Karen took the stand herself, a last desperate gambit, and it backfired spectacularly. Under cross-examination, she snapped at the prosecutor, insisting the neighborhood needed someone strong to keep order. Someone had to make the rules mean something, she said, voice rising, or people like him would ruin this place. Him, meaning me. A single father whose only crime was buying his daughter a swing set. The jury saw exactly who Karen was in that unscripted moment, not a misunderstood grandmother, but a woman addicted to control. Closing arguments took most of a day. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. I sat in the hallway with Eliana's photo in my pocket, hands cold, waiting for a verdict that felt like it would define the rest of our lives. When the jury foreman stood, the courtroom went utterly silent. Guilty, he said, on the charge of assault with a deadly weapon. Guilty, on impersonating a public safety officer. Guilty, on embezzlement. Guilty, on forgery. Guilty, on witness tampering. Karen's face drained of color. The pearls, the cardigan, the practiced grandmother smile, none of it mattered anymore. But the biggest twist of the entire trial hadn't happened yet. It was waiting in the sentencing report. During pre-sentencing investigation, detectives dug deeper into Karen's background, following a strange gap in her employment history from years earlier. They found records from a different state, a custody dispute where Karen, then a private investigator's assistant, had once detained a child she wrongly believed was being trafficked by his own father. That case, buried and sealed for over a decade, was reopened once prosecutors saw the parallel to what she'd done to Eliana and me. The father in that older case, now in his 40s, flew in to testify at sentencing, describing being held at gunpoint by a security guard Karen had personally directed. It turned out Karen's obsession with protecting children from bad parents wasn't new. It was a pattern going back over a decade. The court learned that Karen had once physically restrained that other child in a mall parking lot for nearly 40 minutes, convinced she was a hero. No charges had stuck back then, but this time, prosecutors used the pattern as evidence of intent, not impulse. This was not a one-time lapse in judgment, the prosecutor argued. This is a documented history of dangerous vigilante behavior spanning over a decade. The judge, visibly moved, asked Karen directly if she understood the harm she had caused 2 different children in 2 different decades. Karen, for the first time in the entire trial, said nothing at all. Sentencing was set for 3 weeks later, giving both sides time to prepare victim impact statements. In that gap, something unexpected happened. The county opened a civil case against Brookstone Meadows HOA itself for failing to oversee Karen for 6 long years. Every resident who'd been fined, harassed, or intimidated was invited to file a claim for restitution. Nearly 40 families came forward. The scale of Karen's quiet reign of terror was bigger than anyone had realized. I sat with Eliana one evening and finally told her, in gentle words, that that swing lady was going away for a very long time. Is it because of what she did to you? Eliana asked, small and serious. It's because of what she did to a lot of people, I told her. But mostly, yes. Because of us. The morning of sentencing, the courtroom was standing room only. Local news trucks lined the street outside. Karen's attorney requested leniency, citing her age and contributions to the community. The judge's expression didn't shift an inch. I read my victim impact statement with Eliana's small hand wrapped around mine the whole time. You didn't just hurt me, I said, looking straight at Karen. You made my daughter afraid of the people who are supposed to keep her safe. You took a badge that wasn't yours and used it to steal, to threaten and to terrify an entire neighborhood for years. Today, that badge means nothing. Today, the real law finally caught up to you. Karen's shoulders trembled, but no tears came. Even in defeat, she couldn't manage genuine remorse. The judge began reading the sentence and the courtroom leaned forward as one. 12 years for assault with a deadly weapon and impersonating an officer. 8 years, to run concurrently, for embezzlement and forgery. And then came the count nobody expected, kidnapping, tied directly to the decade-old parking lot case reopened by prosecutors. 15 years for that charge, to run consecutively, because the statute of limitations had been paused by new evidence of a continuing pattern of behavior. The final number echoed through the courtroom, 27 years, with no possibility of parole for the first 18. Karen collapsed into her chair. Graham Voss put a hand on her shoulder, she shrugged it off, alone even in her own defense. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Someone near the back actually clapped before the bailiff called for order. I felt Eliana's hand squeeze mine tighter. I looked down and for the first time in months, she was smiling. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, shouting questions about the fake police Karen case that had gripped the entire region for weeks. I kept my statement short. No one should ever have to be afraid of the people claiming to protect them. Today, my daughter is safe. The Brookstone Meadows HOA board dissolved itself entirely within a month, replaced by a professional management company with real accountability. Every family Karen had wrongfully fined received restitution from the frozen shell company funds the auditors had traced. Carol Ito was elected to the new Interim Oversight Committee, the very first act being to ban any resident from wearing a badge of any kind. Diane Foss moved out of state quietly, unable to face the neighbors who'd once trusted her silence. Detective Rios personally called to tell me the older case's original victim had finally gotten a formal apology from the department that failed him years ago. You didn't just get justice for yourself, he said. You reopened a door that had been shut for a decade. I hadn't set out to be anyone's hero. I just wanted my daughter to feel safe on our own driveway again. Eliana's nightmares slowly faded over the following months, replaced by ordinary kid dreams about school projects and birthday parties. We kept the swing set. I rebuilt it myself, stronger, painted her favorite shade of purple. Sometimes she still glances at the empty house across the street where Karen used to live, now sold to a young couple expecting their first baby. Is the new family going to be okay? Eliana asked one evening while we sat on the swings together. They're going to be more than okay, I told her. Nobody's watching them the way Karen used to watch us. I still keep that original folder, the citations, the photos, the fake badge photograph, in a drawer, a reminder of what quiet persistence can accomplish. Priya told me later that our case became a training example for HOA fraud investigations across 3 counties. Local lawmakers cited the case while drafting new legislation requiring HOA financial audits every 2 years, unofficially nicknamed Eliana's Law by the local paper. It wasn't the outcome I ever imagined the night the taser hit my chest. It was better. But justice, even sweet as it was, came with its own quiet cost. Eliana still sometimes wakes up asking me to check that the front door is locked twice, a habit the therapist says may never fully disappear. I lost 8 months of savings to legal fees before the restitution fund reimbursed a fraction of it. Some neighbors never fully returned to being neighborly, still carrying the shame of having stayed silent for years out of fear. The scar on my chest from the taser prongs has faded to a pale mark, but I still feel a phantom sting on cold mornings. Karen, 27 years into a sentence she built with her own greed and cruelty, sends occasional letters from prison that I never open. Priya says she still insists, even now, that she was only ever protecting the neighborhood. Some people never learn. Some people never even try. What I learned instead was simpler: quiet documentation beats loud outrage, and patience, however painful, is its own kind of power. I learned that neighbors who stay silent aren't always cowards, sometimes they're just waiting for someone brave enough to go first. And I learned that my daughter is stronger than I ever gave her credit for, stronger than the woman who once made her scream in our own driveway. Eliana turned 8 last month. We had the party in our backyard, right beside the purple swing set Karen once tried to tear down. 12 kids from the new, quieter Brookstone Meadows came, laughing, chasing each other across grass that no one measures with a ruler anymore. Carol Ito brought a cake. Diane Foss sent a card from out of state, a small, awkward apology tucked inside. I watched Eliana blow out her candles, and for the first time in over a year, I didn't feel the need to keep glancing at the street. The fear was gone. Not forgotten, never fully forgotten, but gone from the place it used to live in my chest. Some evenings I still think about that first fruit basket Karen brought us and the smile that never quite reached her eyes. I think about how close I came to writing off her cruelty as harmless eccentricity, the way so many neighbors had for years before me. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone facing their own Karen, it's this: keep every letter, every photo, every date. Petty tyrants always leave a paper trail. The badge Karen wore that night was fake. The power she claimed over us was fake. But the consequences she finally faced were painfully, permanently real. 27 years is a long time to sit with the truth of who you really are, stripped of every title you ever gave yourself. I hope, somewhere in that quiet, Karen finally understands what she took from a little girl who only ever wanted to swing in her own backyard. As for us, we stayed in Brookstone Meadows. Not out of stubbornness, but because it finally, truly, feels like home again. The new HOA sends friendly reminder emails now, never citations. Nobody carries a badge. Nobody measures anyone's grass with a ruler. Eliana wants to be a lawyer when she grows up. Like Miss Priya, she tells people. Someone who catches the bad guys with paperwork. I couldn't be prouder of the reason why. Every scar left a lesson, every quiet night of fear became fuel for a fight worth winning, and every ounce of patience finally paid off. Justice took its time coming to Brookstone Meadows, but when it arrived complete, and it never let Karen go.